Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Dontaesboxingnation. Keep watching, otherwise, you know.
Dontaesboxingnation, what's going on, guys? You know, the road just keeps getting tougher and tougher for Nonito Donaire, doesn't it? And that's courtesy of your boy Guillermo Rigo. Ever since the Rigo loss, it seems like it's been all downhill for Nonito Donaire. Following that defeat, Donaire had a very disappointing performance against Vic Darchinyan, a guy that made him who he is today. You see, Donaire was expected to go in there and blow out Vic Darchinyan in the rematch. But surprisingly enough, it was Darchinyan that was damn near blowing out Donaire throughout the whole fight. He busted up Donaire's face pretty bad. He had Nonito Donaire second-guessing himself. Matter of fact, Donaire would make a very surprising admission by saying that he actually thought about quitting in the Vic Darchinyan fight because things were going so bad. Okay? Once again, guys, this is all courtesy of Guillermo Rigo, the guy that Donaire had said for years wasn't on his level, didn't deserve to fight him, didn't have enough experience, and wasn't ready to get in the ring with someone like Donaire. Now look at where Donaire is at. Now look at where Rigo is at. This is also proof that you don't have to knock someone out to have an everlasting effect on a person's career. So now with all that being said, basically the summary is Donaire, he loses to Rigo, he almost loses to Vic Darchinyan, and now his next opponent is simply Vetyeka. Hopefully I said that name right. That's the very first time I've ever said it. So anyway, now before this fight became official, I have to be honest, I had never even heard of Vetyeka, all right? But once this fight became official, I started to, research the guy. I watched some of his fights on YouTube and found out that this guy is pretty damn impressive, okay? Matter of fact, his last two victories are very impressive victories if you consider who he beat. The first fighter that Vetyeka beat was Dodd Yordan. He stopped him. It was a TKO in the final round. That was a very impressive win. You guys can go back and watch the video. He outboxed. He fought on the inside. He fought on the outside. And then he stopped Dodd Yordan. Okay? But the most impressive win was to beat the long reigning champion, the undefeated Chris John. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Chris John is a very respected champion. Once again, a very long reigning champion. And he also holds a win over Juan Manuel Marquez. I mean, it was a close fight, but nevertheless, Chris John, he frustrated and he outboxed Juan Marquez. But when it comes to the South African, Vetyeka, he was able to go in there and easily outbox Chris John. And what was interesting is Chris John was actually fighting a very good fight. Chris John was being extremely aggressive, and he was, you could tell he was really hungry, but Vetyeka, he was just outboxing Chris John. He was outthinking him. He was catching him with perfect counter shots. And like I said, eventually he knocked him out in the 6th round. And by the way, that's the picture of the Chris John fight that you guys are looking at right now on this video. So Vetyeka from, I don't know a whole lot about Vetyeka. All I know is those last two fights that I've seen. Okay? So it's not really enough to give a definitive breakdown on Vetyeka, but it gives you a little bit of a microcosm of what he is capable of doing. So by just watching those two fights, what I learned by watching Vetyeka is he's a very good boxer. I mean, I won't say he's a Guillermo Rigo, but he's a pretty good boxer. His style is a lot different than a Rigo because he's more of a long, rangy type boxer. It looks like he has very long arms. He shows very good foot movement. But at the same time, he likes to fight off the ropes. He'll trade with you at any time. He's a good counterpuncher. And the fact that he knocked out Chris John, a guy who had never been knocked out before and never even lost before, suggests that he has some pretty decent power as well. This is all bad news for Nonito Donaire, guys. This is all bad news for Nonito Donaire. And I'm telling you right now, guys, if the same Donaire that fought against Vic Darchinyan shows up for this fight, Donaire is going to lose this fight. Donaire is going to lose this fight unless he has some very lucky judges scoring the fight. Okay? I mean, he's going to have to bring a lot more than what he brought against Vic Darchinyan to beat this South African fighter. Not only that, but he's probably going to have to bring even more than what he showed before he lost to Rigo. Because now that I think about it, even when you go back and you watch the Matabula fight, in the Matabula fight, Donaire was down on the scorecards going into the 10th round. And that was Harold Letterman's scorecard. Okay? That tells you a lot. And then you look at the Wilfredo Vasquez fight, a fight that Donaire was supposed to win easy. And that fight was a split decision. The only reason why that fight wasn't a draw is because Donaire got a knockdown. In that fight, Vasquez was supposed to be the flat-footed, easy opponent to hit. But it turned out to be the contrary, because Vasquez, for the most part, he was actually outboxing the boxer, Nonito Donaire. And then, of course, we have the Narvaez fight. In the Narvaez fight, it looked like for the first 5 rounds that Narvaez was pretty much outboxing Nonito Donaire. All right? Now, the point that I'm making right now, guys, is I just told you that we're going to have to see a better Donaire than we've seen against Vic Darchinyan. Now, if Donaire versus Matabula, Vasquez, and Narvaez is the best Donaire that he can offer, then this is going to be a hell of an uphill battle for Nonito Donaire. This is going to be a very difficult fight if he's not able to save himself and land one lucky punch and knock this guy out, which is possible. But when that's a person's only chance, it's kind of hard to go for that guy thinking that he's going to win the fight if his only chance is to win by a one-punch knockout, right? Now, and I will say this for Donaire. Unfortunately, this is almost a lose-lose situation for Donaire, because if Donaire were to win this fight, then people are going to say, well, you fought against a nobody because nobody knows who he is, and you were supposed to win that fight. You were supposed to go in there and blow this guy out and annihilate him. So he won't get the credit that I think that he deserves, because I truly believe, after what I've seen, if Donaire can go in there and beat this guy, especially if he can do it decisively. I'm not talking about a life and death win like a Matabula or a Vasquez fight. I'm talking about if he can go in there and wipe this guy out, you know, like Rigo Donaire style. If he could do that to Vetyeka, that would be a very impressive performance. And I would give Donaire a lot of credit if he could do that to the South African champion. But I don't think a lot of other people will give him credit, because a lot of people don't know who this guy is that Donaire is actually facing. So that might not make the win as big as I think that it should be if he wins in a dominant performance. But of course, things could obviously be a lot worse, right? Like Donaire could get knocked out, or Donaire could quit like he thought about doing in the Vic Darchinyan fight, and then things are a lot worse. Then his career is definitely over with. So I see this fight as very close. I see this as a very difficult fight for Nonito Donaire. Matter of fact, when I think of it, I can't think of any fight at the featherweight division, especially if he's fighting against a guy who's in the top 10, that would be a safe fight for Donaire. So even though I see this fight as a very close fight, if I had to lean towards someone, I would lean towards Vetyeka. I think that Vetyeka, you know, like I said, when I look at the performances, Donaire against Matabula, Vasquez, and even Vic Darchinyan, you would have to, logically, you would have to think that Vetyeka at least has a very good chance. Even if you're not picking him to win the fight, you would have to be honest with yourself and think that he has a very good chance to win the fight. We know that Donaire, he struggles against boxers and counterpunchers. He struggles against these guys. And now he has one. And he has one who has once again proven himself against 2 great fighters. But even with all of that said, I still would have to say I don't know a whole lot about Vetyeka. Now, I was looking at his record, and one thing that kind of sticks out is it was only about 4 fights ago that he actually had a split decision loss to a guy who had 9 defeats on his record. So, I mean, but like I said, I haven't seen the fight. I don't know how the fight played out. It was an 8-rounder. I know that. But that's not enough to know exactly why and how he lost that fight. So like I said, there's still a lot of things that we don't know about Vetyeka, but from what I've seen, I would have to lean towards him to pull off the upset in this fight. So that's pretty much all I got to say on this one, guys. I'm on to the next one.